What up, though?
Hello, hello.
We're back. Blasian Soul Podcast, in effect. Thank you for joining us. My name is Marcella Robertson.
It's my Laura Robertson.
Nippapon Robertson.
Nippapon Robertson.
Once again, we're here to talk about current events.
Yes.
Shed a little light on what's going on in the country. Kind of dispel the narrative that's going on right now as far as the Black community and Asian community is concerned. As I always say, we started this podcast because someone told us that, the problems of minority is that they don't have true role models to look up to.
Mm-hmm.
And we totally disagree with that, number one. Number two, it's not only celebrities that are considered role models, but people in your own community that can be considered role models. So we took it upon ourselves to kind of, shed light on community leaders so that people know and understand that it's not just the celebrities, but it's people among you who are considered role models.
Yes, definitely. And we want to showcase, this is, I believe, our eighth speaker for the time being since we started, and we appreciate all of your support. We're doing this on our spare time just so that we can help entrepreneurs of the community, of the Asian and Black community and minorities and small businesses get their message out and showcase and let everybody know that there are some heroes among us and some experts among us. And hopefully you guys get a lot from our show. We're here an hour every week at 7 p.m. to help shed light on and educate you all. So
let's talk about the elephant in the room right quick. The election. The election is going on right now. It is a very, very close election. It does look like Biden will come out on top, but just like in 2016, there can be a late rally, there can be a late count. Things can change. So everyone is still kind of waiting to see exactly what happens with this very important election. But I would like to say, no matter what happens on either side, we want everyone to be safe. We want everyone to, from a mental capacity, go with whatever happens. If it happens that the Republicans win, your job is not done because you have to hold them accountable. And the same thing with the Democrats. So we are very interested in seeing who actually becomes our next president. But the true power relies on the people, relies in us keeping our elected officials accountable and kind of giving them our voice so that they know exactly what we want as a people, as a nation. I won't really go into my thoughts as far as what's going on now and going into the courts and things of that nature, because I don't want to seem biased in any way. But stay tuned, because I think this is going to be one for the ages, so to speak. Before we get to our guests, we do promote small businesses. That's one of the reasons why we're here. That's one of the reasons why we do what we do. Because if someone is in your community and they are taking that plunge to open a business, then we want to support that. You can see this on our Facebook account, but I just kind of want to show you guys this gentleman right here. Look at that shirt. Look at the designs. Look at the creativity of that shirt. It's pretty remarkable. And I want to give a shout out to exactly who they are. The young man who is posing is Jimmy. His sister Jordan is creating new clothing. Once again, that is a pretty awesome shirt for a young teenager to come up with. I want to say like 14, but I'm not quite for sure. Actually, this is a relative of a good friend of mine, Michael Turner, who I went to school with in college. And, seen the post, liked the design, very creative. Something that I would have never done at that age. But for young people to create and start a business and try to do positive things, we all have to represent. So we will show the actual URL or domain name for the clothing line. Check it out. Check it out. Even if you don't purchase any of the clothing, which I hope you do, share it. Share our post, share their story, and support them, because that's what this is all about. It's great when us adults come up with a plan and come up with a plan of attack for a new business, but it's all inspiring when a young person does it. So please help out Jimmy, help out Jordan, and make sure that their creativity gets around.
Awesome. Awesome. And if you know anyone that's doing great things out there, definitely send them our way. We would love to showcase them as well. But without further ado, I would love to bring our guest. Tonight's topic is a very important one, and one that is very beneficial right now. We are going to be talking about men and mental health with our guest speaker, Stephen Jackson, who is a restorative justice practitioner. And without further ado, we will introduce you and bring on to the show here, meet Stephen Jackson. Hello, hello.
Hello, hello.
Welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Definitely.
Thank you for joining us, man. It's always just feels good when you see a professional in the industry, and your industry is one to help others. So that's commendable. And not to beat around the bush, but to see a Black man in a professional setting, doing what he can do to help the community is something that we tout. It's one of the reasons why we started the podcast. So we thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thank you again for the invitation.
So let's start out with exactly what you do. Restorative justice practitioner. A lot of people might not know what that means. So why don't you kind of expound on what you actually do?
I wear many hats, but one of the hats you're speaking of is a restorative justice practitioner. Let me first define for you my definition of what restorative justice is. Restorative justice is a method of practice that aims to repair the holistic well-being of the person or persons harmed, the offenders, and the communities impacted by the offense, to prevent reoccurrences of the harm. So it's a harm prevention strategy that I didn't create, but the natives of all the lands, the Aboriginal people, the native people of the land, are the ones who founded this practice. They used the medicine wheel, which had many different variations, such as the cardinal directions, such as the elements. But for restorative practices and purposes, we are talking about the mental, spiritual, emotional, and physical well-being. So what the primary practice that I do use, restorative practice, is peace circles. Peace circles are a practice where people sit around in a circle, and the topic is discussed or hashed out beforehand, why we are meeting. If it's not, there's so many different variations of circles, talking circles, healing circles, reentry circles, you name them. But a lot of what you hear about circles is with conflict resolution. It's a way to resolve conflict, but it's more than that. So that is what I do. At the moment, I am currently completing I'm in a graduate program at National Louis University. I am an intern at Stonecatchers Counseling, a good friend of mine, Sabrina Albert. And I am offering pro bono counseling, in particular for Black males. I serve everyone, but like you all, I understand that there is a need. I myself, and the reason why I did go in the field was because I had issues finding a Black therapist. So my wife is a licensed therapist as well, and we will be opening our private practice next year to specifically target Black people, just specifically Black people. to serve that population because we know there is a need. But like I said, I am currently interning, finishing up my internship and jumping into my practicum at Stonecatchers Counseling. So if anyone you know or anyone who is listening is in need of some group or individual counseling, you can contact us at Stonecatchers Counseling at 630-797-9807. And we have an on-call program and we're available 24/7. So the organization is an organization I believe in. And their mission is everyone's capable of change. And so that's what I'm doing now. I'm also, my full-time job is I am the manager of teen services at Oak Park Public Library, where I manage the teen services department, which is a fairly new department. When I started in 2016, we were the 4th library in the nation to integrate social services in public libraries, which is a need. So we did that and we'll continue to do that. But I've grown into another position, but I do as well still serve public safety department and the social services department. So there's many things I do. I'm also a licensed realtor. Where I pride myself on wherever I see there's a need, I'd rather be the change that I want to see. So proud father of 2.
And one on the way.
And one on the way.
Awesome.
All right, now you touched upon it a little bit, that one of the reasons why you got into the field that you're in is because you had a need for a counselor or counseling, and you couldn't find one that, to be quite frank, you felt comfortable with. And a lot of times, the person that sits across from you, if they look like you, if they say I have the same hue as you, there are times that people feel more comfortable or willing to open up about certain things that they might not want to open up with someone of a different ethnicity. So tell us a little bit about why you got into the field. What was kind of the defining factor of you saying, well, you know what, I'm going to do this myself?
I touched on it lightly about when I was divorced several years ago. And that was the first time I actually considered going into counseling through the EAP program, employee assistance program, through my employment, 3 free sessions they offer. So I jumped in and tried to get some services. And the only person that they could find is a white female. And a lot of times, white people are the issue of why that we are in counseling. I just want to put this out there that I am in belief that we are in a system of racism, white supremacy. And I define racism, white supremacy as a global system of people who classify themselves as white and are dedicated to abusing and or subjugating everyone in the known universe whom they classify as white. So living in that system and having that belief, going to a person to handle issues which contribute to me being in counseling will be antithetical to doing that and could re-traumatize me. And that is what happened. So after experiencing that and being re-traumatized, I told myself I would never go back to a therapist. Not that they are not skilled or qualified to offer services, but just not to me. So that is a contributing factor to why I went in the field. And my wife is a therapist, and we both come from backgrounds of service. So I saw her in the field and doing great, amazing work, and I kind of do it anyway through restorative practices, having conversations with people from many different walks of life, but. We decided we wanted to go into practice. So I decided I would be one of the therapists in the practice. So that is the reason why. Main reason I did not want to be re-traumatized while going into a place where it's supposed to be safe.
Now, you touched on a lot there, and your definition is one that I need to copy and post on every social media platform that I have, because it was eloquent in nature, but it's still it was spot on. Mm-hmm. So let me ask you this: as a people, Black people, as a people, do you feel that there's still, as a people, we're traumatized, or some even say that we have PTSD because of the trials and tribulations that we've went through in our history here in America? What do you think about that? Do you think that Black people as a whole needs healing, number one? And number two, do you think that that is something that we do internally, or is that something that we need to do as a nation, which means that white people in general need to admit of the wrongs that have occurred in this country and do something about it? Or do you, there's two frames of thought. There's thought that we don't need anybody else but ourselves. We can do this internally as a people. And then there's some that through reparations, through people admitting blatantly about the trials and tribulations of slavery, that is the only way we'll heal. So what is your thought process? Is it something that we can do internally, or we do need that closure from America?
I think they both can exist. I think first and foremost, we have to work on ourselves. We can't sit around and wait for anyone to do anything for us. That's why if you look at my life, it's indicative of that. And I believe that we are currently not only in the system of racism and white supremacy, but we live in a white supremacy culture, which is a terminal illness of the world population, where those who do classify themselves as white dominate and subjugate anyone whom they classify as non-white, unconsciously and or intentionally, in all 9 areas of people activity. And those 9 areas, as defined by Neely Fuller Jr., are education, entertainment, economics, labor, law, religion, politics, sex, and or war. Those are all the 9 areas who he defined as where people interact, where humans interact. So in all those areas, people who classify themselves as white unconsciously, like I said, or intentionally, subjugate and dominate in those areas. So because of that, and because of my belief, we have to do things internally amongst ourselves. First and foremost, that's just essential. Eventually, after I believe that after they see us be self-reliant on with ourselves, I just can't sit and wait for anybody to do anything for me. Right. So I'm not going to hold my breath to wait for white people to do anything for me, and I'm just not going to do that personally. And reason why I stutter when I talk about it, because I live in this system, and sometimes I try to justify things that I say, like, because I want to put the disclaimer in there that not all. If you are white, you are a racist suspect, and that's my personal belief. Sure. Because of my trauma.
Yes.
You're always a suspect because this is the system that we lived in. You were born under it. Your ancestors perpetrated it. You classify yourselves as white, and you benefit. So to answer your question, we have to do it ourselves. And if in the process of that happening, people want to hold themselves accountable for what happened and what continues to happen to this day, more power to them.
Mm-hmm. So what do you think of our, I guess for the time being, our commander-in-chief? How do you think that plays a role, and politics in general plays a role in the plight of the black person in America?
People may not agree with what I say when I speak about the current president at this minute, but I can accept his form of racism or him being a racist suspect because there's no way to prove it. that this person is a racist. It's just the way I see things. But he is a blatant. He does it and he tells you how he feels.
Right.
The refined racist, the liberal racist, the progressive racist. So racism takes on 4 different stages. As I believe that the establishment, the maintenance, the expansion, and the refinement. So those were the refinement. I feel like right now we are in the refinement era where you have people who, are refined in their racism, such as the gentrification movement, the do-gooders, the pat ourselves on the back. It's just refined racism, at least the way I see it.
Okay.
So yeah, I appreciate that the president is going to tell you exactly how he feels about Black people instead of the person who says, I want to help you out and I want to do this or I want to do that or I feel your pain and things of that nature. I'd rather hear you say, I don't like you, Black man, or whatever you want to identify yourself as. I'd rather hear it like that.
Right.
It's easier with the enemy that you know than the enemy that you don't know. So I wholeheartedly agree with that. Well, tell us a little bit about, so you're a perfect client, and perfect might be a not a perfect term for this, but your ideal client that comes through the door. What are they going through, and what are you going to do to help that person? Is it just depression of a Black man, or they've done something wrong, so you're going through corrective steps? Tell us, in a a routine day, what would you see coming through your door?
We are so multifaceted. You can see anything. You can see depression. You can see, I think we all, people who are non-white, suffer from post-traumatic slave disorder or post-traumatic stress, however you want to define it. I think we all that's a big root cause of a co-occurring issue with people who are non-white. But you can see anything. Someone that was recently released, and a little disclosure is I myself spent 12 years in prison from the years of 1998 to 2010 in prison. So I specifically work with that population as well. Just to use myself when I work with youth as a cautionary tale to what is possible and able to share and self-disclose in certain circumstances how that was possible. But whether you are a Black man and that we have any range of issues, suicide is actually real in our community. I have a few friends who have children and family members who have successfully completed suicide. You can see that you name it, any range. And suicide wouldn't be something that you would think would be issues, and certain behaviors can be considered suicidal to begin with, such as drinking, perpetual drinking, continual drug abuse, of harmful drugs. So those are suicidal behaviors as well, especially when they have adverse effect on your health. So anybody who comes walking through that door is my ideal client. Anyone who is non-white and walks through that door is my ideal client. And my role is to aid you in coming up with solutions. I can offer things, but it has to be on the person who I'm serving to actually execute what we come up with in order to promote healing and wellness with them.
That's a hard thing, because we as Black men, we don't want to show any form of weakness, if, for lack of a better term. So, you kind of look at the outside world and you say, well, because, I'm a business professional. So in my daily routine of dealing with other business professionals and industries, you never want to show weakness because you feel that, these white people, for lack of a better term, already look down upon you. So you don't want to show weakness. But then again, with your family or your wife or your girlfriend, as a man, you never want to show weakness either, because you are the rock. Or we've been taught that the black man in your family is the rock that holds everything together. Do you find that it's hard for black men to open up to you when you do get them in your office?
Sometimes I feel like most situations, if they show up, that's the biggest biggest step in the process. Mental health doesn't have as a negative connotation as it used to in the Black community, and I think that is very, very good. And I share it as often as I can. That I too am in. I have a counselor, I have a therapist that I go to, and I think all good counselors have a counselor. So I'm not exempt from needing those services. And sometimes I will disclose that to my client, just to let them understand that I too need the additional support in dealing with all these things that are going on in my life. As I shared with you, I have a ton of things going on in my life. We have several businesses. I have children. I have a wife that has needs, and I have family members who need me as well. And I serve the community in my role, in my many different roles. I serve the community, so I need that time. Both my wife, we go individually, and we go together as couples, to get that. So I don't have any problem with sharing that and letting people know that I too use the services that I recommend.
Yeah. And I think that helps them relate to you as well. And they'll probably be more open because you've been through it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So is couple counseling vastly different than individual counseling?
It is. So when you are serving an individual person, you're serving that individual person. They can bring other people into the session, but those people, I'm talking about, just speak on another person, but they aren't there. We're not serving them.
Right.
When you bring another person in here, the counselor, us as counselors, we are serving both of the people. So we have to be balanced. And we have two clients instead of one client. So there is a stark contrast in how you serve an individual as well as serving group. I specialize in groups as restorative practices are in a lot of situations that there are groups. And just to share a little bit more with you about the restorative practices, the way communities used to resolve issues or meet people when they come into the community is they would circle up. They would get in a circle. They would sometimes, in some cultures, they pass around a pipe. I don't know what was in the pipe, but I know they passed around the pipe and shared with the person that came into their community. They didn't have the ownership, like, this is our land. I mean, this is my land. This is our land. The native people of the land, this is we didn't own it. That's why they were able to be taken advantage of so easily by the invaders or whatever you want to call them, colonizers. They were easily taken advantage of because they didn't look at like, this is my land and no one else's. This is our land, and we all can reap the benefits of this space. And who led the communities were the elders. And the elders aren't necessarily people who are long in the teeth. They are those who embody, as I see it, three things. And as the Aborigine people, three things. They had the knowledge, they had the wisdom, and they had the respect from the community. Mm-hmm. So when you embody those three things, you are considered an elder in the community because, like, the whole community respects you. So when you speak, people are listening. You have the knowledge. So you have the content, and you have the wherewithal to speak on issues, and then the wisdom is the experience that you bring with that knowledge. So the elders were the ones who held the space, the ones that said, okay, you bring people to this person and they're going to be able to give sage advice or on how to handle the situation, or how we can serve the people who do come into our communities. And ideally, I would love to see the United States turn to that model of the people that were native to this land. And we sort of model after it in theory. A lot of our systems, such as the court systems, are modeled after what they saw here. Jury of your peers.
Mm-hmm.
But when I'm in front of a jury, no one looks like me. So how are they my peers?
Right.
A judge from your community. When I go to a judge, you're not of my community. You're not of my culture, and culture is not race. Culture is what you do, what you are doing while you are doing it, is the way I define it. So if you look at the Supreme Court, they don't look like anybody from my community. So how could you have real justice when these things are in place? But if you had elders in the criminal in the Supreme Court, you can trust these people because they have the knowledge, they have the wisdom, and you respect them, and they respect you. So that's what restorative practices are, and that is the way we can serve, and that is the way we can get back to the heart of what this country really is supposed, or the way I feel, or the way I see this country really is supposed to represent.
Okay. So in that vein, do you think that is why there is so much tension between minorities and people of color and the police department? There's been, very bad situations to go on between who are supposed to protect us. So what do you think the disconnect comes? Is it that there are not enough Black police officers, or not enough elders from the community that are involved in it? And from your opinion, being a professional and being an expert in this, what do you see as a solution to the problems that we're having with law enforcement?
Number one, I think that the requirement, a prerequisite to become a police officer should be social work. I think that should be a prerequisite, just a baseline, because you're dealing with people every day, all day.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, I think that you should be, in order to serve in a community, you should live in the community. Mm-hmm. And for some reasons, and I train police officers, I have police officer friends, police officer relatives. And like I said, I train police officer and restorative practices. So like, this is my belief. I believe, and they tell me for security issues, that could be a hazard. Mm-hmm. I get it, kind of, sort of. Mm-hmm. But like, what that does is you're held at a different standard. If you're out there being a just officer and serving your community, nothing's going to happen to you when you're going home at the end of the day. You don't have to worry about that because you are doing what you're supposed to be doing. Mm-hmm. But I think that would mitigate a lot of these issues that we're seeing. So I also agree that there are not enough Black officers, but as Dave Chappelle, people forget about, I'm failing to recall the brother's name. He wrote that manifest, Christopher Dorner.
Yes. Yeah.
People are failing to recall Christopher Dorner. He blew the lid off of what's going on.
Yep.
In the police department, and it's the way they handled him as a person with the blue shield, or whatever term they use in order to the blue club or the wall of blue, or I'm failing to recall what they call it, but like the way they treated him and didn't apprehend that man and bring him in, they blew up the whole cabin.
Yeah.
Wow.
Just for quick, just to, I guess, get out the narrative that you're speaking of. This was a police officer, a Black police officer, and I'm trying to remember the story, but he brought to light all of the racism and all of the bad things that are happening within the police force, and he was shunned. He was basically kicked off the force. He was shunned. He got no help. So he wrote a manifesto, basically his thoughts about what's going on, and tried to let people know what's going on. But ultimately, it became a violent situation where he took some lives, and when they caught up to him, we see so many times with white criminals, and criminal might be a bad term, but they're apprehended without incident. With this guy, not only did they take his life, but they blew up the cabin that he was in, as opposed to trying to bring him in, because in my opinion, they knew that if they brought him in, and his voice would have been heard more nationally now, because it's a big story, that a lot of people's lives would have changed because he was blowing the whistle. So they took him out to be, to for lack of a better term. So yeah, I totally agree. I think that is a big problem for Black people, and if it's a big problem for Black people, it's a big problem for America as a whole. So what do you think? I don't want to butcher Martin Luther King's quote, but it was something along the lines of rioting is the voice of the unheard, or the voice of the people that are, I guess, pushed under the rug and not really taken for granted. What do you think of the rioting that has happened? Now, there's a difference between the protesters and the rioting, but that is a portion of what's been happening, because there are so many people that feel that this is a hopeless situation. So what is your take on the rioting that's happened recently?
I give little attention to it because we're looking at a reaction to repeated trauma. I agree with Dr. King's quote. I can't think of it verbatim, but I think that's exactly what it is. They can't find any other ways to voice themselves, so they exercise whatever means they can to have their voice heard. I wouldn't take part. I don't take part in marches. I don't take part in any of those type of things, or riots or anything like that, just because I think it's counterproductive for me. I think everyone has a role. I'm a little older now, and I believe in older people, we should give guidance to the younger people. The older ones aren't the ones on the front line of the war. They're the ones giving the sage advice and guidance to the young people. Yeah, it's what happens, and it's just what happens when things like this happen. Like, yeah, that's just that.
Right. And I tell people all the time when I have that discussion, I don't take part in riots. I won't say I agree with riots, but I understand and I empathize when that occurs. And for America as a whole, they're no stranger to violence when they are, when there is when there's not a meeting of the minds. So if another country, if we are not in agreement with them, we go through certain steps, but ultimately those steps can devolve into, our military taking action. So that's something that I think people should take a look at, is that, as a nation, when
we learn behavior.
Exactly. We're following suit with what our nation does when there is, discrepancy in what we believe and what another person or another country believes. So once again, I don't necessarily agree totally with the actions, but I definitely sympathize and empathize with why they're doing it.
Well, I was on another podcast about a few months ago, and that same question came up, and the host, he did mention, which kind of made me think a little bit, he did mention the exact same thing that you guys are saying about our country, Laos, with the American bombing us, the CIA having a secret war on our country because they wanted something or whatever it is that was going on back then. And they didn't care who was killed or whose lives were in danger, so that kind of opened up my eyes a little bit. It's kind of similar to what you guys are discussing here. And I don't condone riots at all, but that point that he gave did shed a light a little bit.
Yeah, it's a learned behavior, and as Marcelo, as you mentioned, like if you look at the history, we have been at war longer than we've been. I think we only haven't been at war 4 years since the inception of this country. Yes. So like we're actually at war now. Yes. FYI, people. But like violence is what we do. If you listen to songs that we sing, the national anthem and different things, bombs bursting in air, we're talking about bombing people, killing people. Yes. The Rampers we watched, it's as I mentioned, that white supremacy culture, and they're subjugating people who they categorize as non-white, and we're talking about a status, a social status, and we're talking about white, so.
And something that a friend of mine had brought to my attention, and this has to do with law enforcement to a certain degree, but it has to do with America as a whole, is that the movies we grew up on was the cop having to break the law to, right the wrong and become the hero, the Dirty Harrys of the world, the Lethal Weapons, all of those movies we championed because they broke the law because they felt something else was right. And that has been ingrained in, there's a certain type of person usually that would like to be a law enforcement officer. Some are true in wanting to protect and serve, but there's others that has that Dirty Harry chip on their shoulder that I'm going to do what I feel is right. Be damned the procedures and policies that have been set forth. So our culture as a whole, it has been, I guess, I don't want to say, violence is our culture, but to a certain degree, it is as Americans. So you can't get mad at us for saying that we're going to tear something up, because that is the narrative that we've learned all our life.
And there was a conversation that I actually walked into at one of my jobs, maybe about, I won't say how long because they might know where this place is. But I had walked in, I was brand new at the job, and walked in with a bunch of the girls talking, and I overheard them. Apparently one of the girls' fiance worked for the Chicago Police Department, and I heard her say to the other girls, yeah, my fiance, he's a cop, and him and his boys, they would go in the hood and plant things in the cars just to give tickets because they hate their effing guts. And when I walked up, of course, they shut up, but that was a shock to me. Like, seriously, you're at work bragging about this, that your cop police officer and the whole force and his group of friends in the Chicago Police Department is doing this. Like, it was just really disheartening to hear, like, this stuff is really going on. And to hear it from somebody who's actually bragging about it, and the other one's like, oh, yeah, like rooting her on, like it's okay. It's not okay, and so it's happening. People are blind to it, but it's happened. I've seen it in my own eyes, so.
That's why I said defining the white supremacy culture, I say unconsciously and or intentionally. Because people use the excuse I didn't know, but because this is the culture, we unconsciously, as humans, sometimes we unconsciously do things because it's the culture, it's what we do, why we're doing it.
Right.
So I don't give excuses for things. I'm not going to give excuses for myself, so I'm not going to expect it from anyone else. I feel like once you own something, you can get past it. That's the easiest way to get past something is by owning it.
And not to get off subject, but my wife had to be, I guess, involved in the situation for her to believe that it happened, because I used to have to travel to Grand Rapids, Michigan 2 or 3 days a week for work. And I kept getting pulled over in this stretch of highway.
He did. I didn't believe him.
I used to come home and be like, man, they pulled me over again.
I said, again? What are you doing wrong?
And her response was,
what is it?
What, are you speeding? What you doing wrong? I'm like, I'm not speeding. I'm not doing anything. I'm telling you, it's just how it is. And she was like, babe.
And you know me, I grew up culturally in my bubble with my Lao community. And so being married to a Black man, I start to see a little bit of different things, and he's educating me, and still there are a lot of things that I still don't know. So I have to ask him, what is that? Who is that? What's going on? But I was shocked because he used to drive to Michigan every single Wednesday, and he would come back. Oh, I got pulled over again. Oh, I got another ticket. And it's always around the Indiana area, like Indiana highway.
So she had to go with me one day because she had a funeral. One of her friends passed in Grand Rapids. So I'm always dressed in a suit. She's in black dress and whatnot. And we get pulled over by a cop. And I kept saying, I told you. The guy pulls us over, and I say, well, what did I do for you to pull me over?
No, let me tell it.
Go ahead.
So he's like, we had no idea. We're going along with just like everyone else. We're going the same speed limit. He wasn't speeding. He wasn't doing anything. He was riding on the left lane like everyone else. He says, what did I do to get pulled over? You're driving too long on the left lane. And we're like, look at everyone else. They're all on the left lane. I see no one on the right lane. Do you have any drugs? You're looking kind of nervous. Do you have any drugs? Do you have anything in your car? Do you have this? Where are you guys going? Where do you work? Who do you work for? What funeral? What's the funeral place called?
Let me tell you, because she bypassing it. When he asked me the second time, where are we going? I said, I'm going to work. She's going to a funeral.
Yeah.
He said, well, where do you work
at?
And I was like, well, that's really none of your concern. I own my own business. And okay, what do you do? What funeral are you going to? So at that time, I'm ticked.
My girlfriend just died.
I'm like, I ain't answering no more questions.
Okay? And I missed it, by the way. I missed her freaking funeral because this cop held us there to question us this whole time, 30, 40 minutes.
She crying now, okay? Because I'm like, I ain't answering no more questions.
He wanted my ID. He wanted.
I'm not answering any more questions. You're going to write me a ticket. So I'm getting ticked off. She busts out crying now, okay? So this is just a situation. And my man like, well, man, you seem very aggressive.
Yeah.
So, saying, well, aggressive, you didn't pull me over. So he say, would you mind if you got out the car so I can search you? I'm like, man, I'm in a suit and tie in a nice car with my wife. Why would you want to search me? And she's just bawling out like I'm going to miss the funeral, this, that, and the other. So I get out the car. I'm like, you know what? Because of the circumstances, I'm going to get out the car. But, I'm going to report this because I don't feel it's right. He was like, I understand. I get out the car. He searched me. I sit back down. I say, is this really necessary? He's like, I'm going to run you right quick, run all my stuff. Comes back and says, you guys have a nice day.
Yeah.
Okay. 40 minutes, we out on the road. At that time, she fully realized.
Yes, I did.
How impactful that is. I mean, she's still upset. We're driving to Grand Rapids. Mm-hmm. She's still all messed up. That is just a small portion of what Black men go through. And it was prophetic that it happened when she was in the car. Because, you tell people all the time these instances that happen, and people are like, well, yeah, you sure you wasn't doing nothing? You sure you wasn't speeding?
You should have obeyed.
Right. Obey. It could have got crazy. But after that, anything I said now, she was fully on board. So sometimes it takes a visual to
I had to see it for myself. I'm just like, are you sleepy? Are you driving too early? Are you speeding? Like, why are you getting all these tickets?
So It does happen. It does happen. I was going to say, now I always throw I guess a curveball to all of our guests. So I think I have two for you. Okay, so the first one would be usually when you see therapists in a movie, especially a therapist that's dealing with a couple, it usually is a comedic scene that the couple starts going in on each other, and now they talking about divorce, and they start telling secrets that, as a married couple, you might not want to tell somebody. Have you ever had one of those situations where you're like, whoa, I did not expect that?
Yeah. I've been in the situation. I was on the other end. Yes.
Oh.
Now, how do you deal with that? She's saying, well, hey, you don't wash the dishes, and, your drawers got stains in them. I mean, they just go in. What do you do in that situation?
You listen, and you give them both adequate time. You be unbiased, be as unbiased as possible in that situation. But depending on who the people are, you use your counseling school tools, break them out of the bag and use them depending on who they are. But yeah, I've been on both ends of it, so
now
it does happen.
There's never a subject where you say, whoa, we might not want to touch upon that, or is everything open game?
Everything's open game. You want to create a safe space. You want people to be able to share those things and not feel like they're going to be judged. You want to create that safe space for your client. That's where the most of the work happens, when you create those spaces.
Okay. And then my final question. You have a 10 o'clock appointment in the morning. You prepare yourself. You're sitting in your office waiting for your appointment to show up. In walks Donald Trump. I don't want to say what's your diagnosis, because you'd have to go through the process, but what do you feel would be the opening questions or opening statements that you would say to him, knowing just from what you see on television and what you've read, what his thought process is and how he conducts himself? In my opinion, the man needs help. You're a person that helps with mental problems. So how would you handle that?
How would I handle them based on what I know, or is it just the first time he walked in?
No, based on what you know, because even though you want to have a clean slate, as human beings, we internalize what we know about some people. So based on that, what do you do?
So in the counseling relationship, we cannot come in like that. So we have what we call supervision, where we talk to other counselors about things where we may be biased or where these issues may come up. Everyone gets a clean slate, even though we may know information about them. The client informs us. We ask the first time. If he was the first time he walked in, that's an intake. So we're just asking questions, just to get information. Because in order to continue to have that conversation, you have to have a diagnosis. And he's narcissistic. He's a bunch of things, and we all know that. But I would be as open and unbiased as possible in dealing with Donald Trump. You would have to be, because that's how you ethically. That's what we have to do as counselors. There's a certain, as any profession, especially in licensing, there's ethical codes in which we agree to in this practice. So, you hear all types of things as being a counselor. And that's one thing, being a Black man, I think I come in with that strength. A strong area for me is not showing expression, facial expressions, or because I've been through a lot of stuff in my life. So when people tell me something, I can not show facial expressions because of my own personal experiences. So there's not too much you can tell me where you're going to get a reaction, at least a facial expression from me. But there are areas where transference happens. because of my experience.
Right. And that's, I say it all the time. That's the black man look. You know what I'm saying? My wife says all the time.
I go like this all the time.
She'd be like, "Why are you looking so mad? Why you got your face scrunched
Erase
up?"
this.
And it's just your basic expression. You know what I'm saying? That you
and then I met his family, and they all have it.
And everybody do the same thing with the eyebrow
does.
raise and the whole nine. So you're telling me that there's never a client that, especially when you're dealing with people who have committed acts, crimes that you're trying to heal and trying to get them to move forward, but there's never any time that they say something that you might not show your disdain, but and I don't want to get into specifics, but maybe someone who has committed a sexual criminal act or things of that as a black man, you're like, man, that's so. Internally, have you ever been like, man, this guy, if I met him at a bar, I'd punch him in the face?
Yeah. So, as I shared with you, I was incarcerated for 12 years. Mm-hmm. So you can imagine the type of people that I've been around. I've been around a man who cut his wife's head off and took her to the bar in Chicago, took her to the bar, took her head to the bar and sat her head on the bar. You name it. Like, I've been with people who committed all type of heinous crimes, with children, boy, you name it. So, been in the same cell, had to live, and coexist with a person in a 2-man cell with people, who have done acts that I don't necessarily agree with. But one thing I know for certain is everybody has a story. Mm-hmm. And there sometimes their life experiences and the way they're conditioned inform why they did what they did. Not to give them an excuse, but if this is all you've known in your life, and this was condoned, and this was the culture that you grew up in, you don't see anything wrong with this act that the mass majority of the people won't necessarily agree with. So again, like I can't cast judgment, and that's what I love about the organization that I'm doing my internship at, the Stone Catchers, and that's why the name of Stone Catchers is why she created it, because she wants to catch those stones that people throw at people. We don't turn people around at that organization. We take everyone. So that's why I love being there, because I believe that that's the way you handle people. I believe there's good in everybody, even Donald Trump.
It's hard to find, man. It's just hard to find.
Yeah, I agree. But I think once you get to know him, once you get to know anybody, and that's part of the restorative practices, is building relationships. Like my wife sometimes asks me, I have friends, white males who are racist suspects, who I still talk to, interact with, go to Sox games with, do things with. And, my wife, why do you? And I'm like, man, for me, this is my case study. I'm learning things. You have to learn these things. If I feel like the person oversteps their bounds, I'm definitely going to say something, do something about it. But I can accept someone who, like I said, is going to share with you, truly share with you the way they feel, versus having those side conversations with people that look like them later on.
Right. Definitely.
Good answer.
Okay.
I was going to say, we are just about wrapping up, but we do have your information scrolling at the bottom, as well as we'll be posting your information on all our social media platforms. So we definitely want people who are in need to seek you out, to take advantage of your expertise to heal themselves as a whole. Do you have anything?
Closing thoughts.
Yeah, closing thoughts.
Closing thoughts for the men out there who are struggling with mental health issues or anything like that.
Yes, I do. Take advantage of this opportunity right now with Stone Catchers Counseling that they're offering, just because it's free.
Right.
It's free. You're getting my services for free. So I recommend for people to come and take advantage of this opportunity. Black men, just Black people in general. I recommend that's what I'm telling people all around. Take advantage of this opportunity. Share with your friends. Share with people who you may think that may need it. Share with those who were recently released from greater confinement. Share this as early and often as possible. And I would be remiss if I did not shout out Dr. Celeste, my wife, the love of my life, the reason why I am the person that I am today.
Is she there?
Who pours into me? She is here. Let me check the nanny. Let me check my son's bed and see if she put him down yet. And let me 1 second.
I just want to throw out that you have just gained, a ton of brownie points, bro.
Why?
Okay, I'm just throwing that out there right now. That last comment right there. Hey, you want to go to a Sox game on Sunday? She wants to do something. That is points that you have just built up. Okay, you didn't do the dishes on a certain day. Hey, I shouted you out on the podcast.
Right.
So hey,
I have to do that just because it's true. Like, she has been the biggest support for me, and this is the reason why, like, I can have all these projects going simultaneously and do them well because of her. She supports me. She said, "Who is they?"
Who is they? They.
That's funny.
Yeah, but I call her Dr. Celeste.
Dr. Celeste.
Because she's the smartest person I know. And she does it so effortlessly. The thing that she does has multiple. Like I said, she's an auditor for the state. She's a therapist. She's an instructor for several different colleges. We have a real estate business. We have a consulting agency.
Wow.
And we have children and family members. Yeah. We believe in doing what we feel. Right? And we don't want to talk about people, what they're not doing. We rather just do it ourselves. So that's why we have so many hands in the pot.
Well, let us, before we go, extend an invitation, because she is another Black professional with varying expertise, and that's what we look for as far as role models within the community. So please extend an invitation that we would love to have her on the show as well. And also, we will be doing a couples podcast where we will have several couples
there she is.
On the show. Who's
they? Come here.
Yeah, oh, no, you got to realize she's pregnant.
I know. Superwoman.
She may have been resting.
Yeah, she is pregnant. She is a Black woman. Do not make that woman do anything that she does not want to do.
Hi, Dr. Celeste.
Hello. We were just discussing you. Your husband was just touting your praising
you. Shout out.
So this podcast is for role models within the community, minority role models. It was based off of people telling us that there's not enough role models for minorities, and that's why the community has the problems that they have. We disagree. We want to shed light on role models and people that, not only celebrities, but people within the community that are considered role models. So with that being said, I know that with the pregnancy and with the hundreds of jobs that you have, sweetheart, that you are very busy, but we would love to extend an invitation for you as well to be on the podcast, to tell your story, to kind of go over your services and see whether or not anyone needs your help as well. But we also will be doing a couples podcast where, we'll be talking about what's going on. We'll be talking about relationships. So we have a few couples that we're going to bring on, and we'd love to have you guys as well. So, you don't have to answer now, but please keep us in mind.
Absolutely.
And we would love to have you on.
Absolutely. Thank you for thinking of me, and I hope everything went well.
Yes, it did. You got to watch it again because I told him he got so many brownie points because he was.
I will have to. I was putting our son down, so, and it's almost my bedtime now. So.
I know, me too. My wife laughs at me because I'm getting up there in age. So 10 o'clock, I'm bedding down for the night. She like, you going to bed?
Already?
It's 10 o'clock. It's time to go to bed. I got to be at work in the morning. So I sympathize. But thank you guys definitely for coming on. We truly appreciate it. Your story is very inspiring. And once again, we will have all your information, not only scrolling on the screen now, but on all our social media platforms. And we wish you guys nothing but the best.
Definitely.
Thank you guys.
Thank you guys. We appreciate you.
All right.
Have a good evening.
Have a good night. Peace.
Bye.
See you guys.
Bye-bye.
That was a good podcast. I like that. They were very laid back. Told us everything, went into detail about their past, about his past, and it's inspirational when someone is not afraid to tell, what they went through, the struggles they went through to get to where they are. So I truly appreciate that. Once again, I think that was a very good podcast. Guys, if you need assistance, if you need help, they're giving free counseling.
Free counseling. You cannot beat that.
Man, you can't beat that. That's the best price in the world.
Definitely.
So, even if it's nothing but you don't want to go in, but you want to have a conversation.
They do virtual.
Yeah, they have 24-hour hotlines. Take advantage while you can, so that, you right now is a very trying time for a number of reasons.
Definitely.
So if you can take advantage of it, or if you feel you need that, take advantage of it. That's why they're here, and that's why we're here, to get out that message.
Definitely.
I think that's it for us. Sweetheart, you got anything else that you want to get off your chest?
Nope, that's it. Next Wednesday, we'll see you here. Same time, same place, and we'll be celebrating my husband's birthday.
It is my birthday.
Yes.
Oh, man,
Next Wednesday is your birthday.
I'm gonna be in here in some boxers and a t-shirt. I'm laid back next week now. But thank you guys for joining us. Thank you guys for taking the time out of your day to take a look at the podcast. If you didn't watch it live, please check out our streaming video whenever you can on all major social media platforms. And we will see you guys next week. Peace out.
Bye-bye. Lock on.